So the perfect webinar script, again, guys, this is something I could go over for hours, but this is kind of what it looks like. Okay, and I'll go through it really, really quickly. Usually there's 3 parts of a webinar. There's the intro, there's the content, and then there's the pitch, the close. So the intro, again, we start with a bold promise. We give them a hook to the end. Something about, if you stay on the end of this webinar, I'm going to give you this cool prize or this bonus or whatever. We command attention. We tell them to put away Skype or Facebook. We try to get their attention. We qualify ourselves on why we're an expert, why they should listen to us. We future pace them about what's going to happen if they consume this webinar and gain from it. Future pace them, right? Then we jump into the content of the webinar. Most people, when they do their webinars, they're trying to teach people 5 or 6 or 7 things. For a webinar to work really, really well, same thing we talked about in all the other scripts, you guys. You got to focus on one thing. What's the one core message that you need to get your audience to believe, to buy what it is you're selling? Okay, and then everything else wraps around that. So for us, we pick one core thing, okay, and usually this one core thing is, we tie it to a headline that says, how to blank without blank. If you can fit that, if you can fit your thing you're selling into that little framework, it works. Okay, for example, one of our recent webinars was high ticket secrets. It was how to sell high ticket products without picking up the phone. How to do what without what. Okay, that's the one thing. And then I go and I share secrets that aren't separate secrets. They're secrets that strengthen the one thing, the one core argument. Okay, and each of these secrets is to break and rebuild their pattern. So if my one thing again is about how to sell high ticket things without selling on a phone, secret number 1 is probably going to be something. It's a pattern they already, or it's a belief they have in their mind. Okay, they believe right now that to sell high ticket things they have to be on the phone. Secret number 1: here's how I do it without a phone. Okay, and I'm going to share them the secret, and I'm going to, in that process, break their belief that they have to have the phone, and I'm going to rebuild it with the truth that I want them to understand and believe. Okay, secret number 2 is maybe I can do that, but it's going to take a lot of traffic. So secret number 2 is how to do this with almost no traffic. I got to break their belief and then rebuild their belief patterns to what I need them to believe to buy my thing. And secret number 3 is the same thing. Okay, so I'm finding out what their belief patterns are that are keeping them from buying my thing. I show them the pattern, I break it, and I rebuild it with what I need them to believe. Okay, that's the content section of your webinar. Then from there, we transition. I say, let me ask you a question. I just showed you some cool stuff, but how would you like for me to help you do this? And then we transition to our close. And again, I could spend days on this close. I'm not going to go through it in a whole, but just to kind of give you, a really quick rundown. The first thing we do, the overall close process is what I call a stack. I learned this from a guy named Armin Morn. The stack has literally made me at least $10 million in the last 5 or 6 years. It's how I do every one of my presentations. What it does is basically when I'm sharing my offer, I share, here's component number 1, and I talk about it. And then here's component number 2. But you notice if I stack them, I share component number 3, and I stack them again. Component number 4, stack them. So if you ever look at my presentations, you'll notice that in fact it's almost humorous sometimes. Like, the first thing you're gonna get is this. That means blah 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 blah. So that means the first thing you're gonna get is this, and then here's the second number thing. And I keep retelling this. So by the time I get to the end, you've heard me stack all the components of the offer like 10 times. But what we found is if you don't do it that way, people only remember the last bonus or the last thing you told them. And so they're justifying the price of what you're selling based on the last thing you told them. And so you want, before you tell them any kind of price, you want them to see the entire offer, everything they're getting in a huge stack. That's why we call it the stack. Okay, and then we pitch it high. We do our if-all statements just like I showed you guys in the last script. We do price high, drop price low, and we have our call to action. Okay, then throughout the stack, there's a bunch of different closes, and I'm not going to go through these right now, but these are a bunch of different closes we use. I'll drop 1 or 2 or 3. Well, I'll probably drop, I don't know, maybe 7 or 8 of these different closes throughout this whole process. And if you Google most of these, you can find them. Some of these are mine. Some of them I learned from other stage presenters. Some I learned from a lot of different people. But if you Google some of these, you'll find out what these closes are. We also have a product at perfectwebinar.com that I go into a lot more detail about this. So that's kind of how we do a webinar pitch.